All right, as debt continues to spiral out of control, future generations will be on the hook for trillions of dollars. The left will tell you it was the 8 years of Bush policy that are the cause for the current Obama deficits. Will add multiples of Bush debt to an already overdrawn congressional checkbook. Let's get perspective from Representative Jack Kingston, Republican from Georgia. He serves on the House Appropriations Committee, which is responsible for figuring out how they spend your money. He joins us now on the phone in Georgia. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Okay, so tell us, what about it? What are we doing wrong here? Well, listen, I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at $1.6 trillion each year for the next 10. This debt is just ballooning out of proportion. How do we stop it, sir?
Well, number one, I want to say, I think one thing is important for us to confess, and as a Republican, I want to say we spent too much money. Spending did go out of control. Having said that, though, let me put it in perspective. If you add up the deficit that we accumulated each year for the 12 years that we were in the majority, the 12 years that we were governing, it's still less than what the Democrats have run up this year alone. We're looking at a deficit this year alone of $1.4 trillion. So while it's true the Republicans did overspend, the Democrats put it on supercharge, and in 1 year ran up a tally bigger than we did in 12. So, you know, I think we both need to confess, but then we need to say, okay, what can we do about this? We're paying about $4 billion a week in interest alone, and we... Go ahead.
Representative Kingston, okay, well, thank you for joining us. I lost you there for a second. First of all, congratulations on the confession. I don't know, you're one of the few Republicans who would admit to that. You know, both sides always blame the other, and rightly so. Boy, it's been on supercharge since Obama took office. But you know what, the main question is, I don't care who's responsible for it. That's a game of tit for tat, you know.
Yeah.
It gets me nowhere, and it gets my kids, whenever I'm blessed with having kids, that, you know, will get them nowhere. The question is, you need to do something about Social Security, Medicare, these government entitlement programs, and the wars that are just ballooning out of the control. The non-discretionary spending freeze, peanuts.
Rebecca,
can you reform or cut those programs, sir?
You know, I think we can. Winston Churchill made this statement, which is still true today. He said Americans never fail to do the right thing after they've exhausted all the other possibilities. And I think right now we're in a sinking boat, and rather than bailing water over the side, Republicans and Democrats are throwing it on each other. We need to, let's talk about that spending freeze. It actually only affects 13% of the entire budget.
We know that.
Plus, it's on a part of the budget that increased 22% in the last 2 years. So freezing it isn't enough, particularly when you're delaying the freeze till 2011. We need to go in and we need to cut duplicate programs, programs that are inefficient, programs that are expanding the entitlement mentality. I think we should go back to Social Security, take it off budget, dedicate the funds, put personalized accounts on it. On Medicare, I think something like vouchers where people actually have an incentive to save money for the government and they're rewarded for doing so, that would change the system around.
Representative, it's still my tax dollars that would pay for all of that, but I think the bigger issue that most Americans have is the out-of-control corporate welfare that you guys, Republicans and Democrats alike, continue to ram down our throat. One of the reasons you got a $1.9 trillion, quadrillion budget deficit is the very fact that you're still paying for the bailouts, and you've got all these continuing welfare programs for the big banks. Stop it. Just cut corporate welfare tomorrow.
I'm in agreement with you as a guy who voted against TARP, who voted against the stimulus programs under Bush, and there was one back in May '08. Everybody's forgotten about $168 billion.
Oh, we don't forget on this show.
Well, Fannie Mae bailout in July of '08, and then, of course, the bailout this year, or '09. But let me say this, and I'm in agreement with you and haven't voted no. I can prove it. But one thing that's important is that the AIG bailout, $85 billion that went to $140 billion, and the Bear Stearns $29 billion bailout were done by the Federal Reserve without one single vote for it or against it by the U.S. Congress. I support Ron Paul's call for an audit of the Federal Reserve so that we can bring their spending under control as well.
Just don't let it get watered down, Representative. Thank you so much, Representative Jack Kingston.
Okay, thanks a lot.